My name is Keith Anderson. I'm the chair of the planning board, and my job was, or I was assigned a job, and I gladly took it to introduce the process tonight briefly. We'll get a whole lot more detail from J.M. Colson as they take over the presentation. I wrote down a few words so I wouldn't forget. I can certainly talk with the best of them, but I thought I'd keep myself on track and stay to my 2 minutes allotted time early. So on behalf of the planning board, welcome everybody. It is actually super exciting to see so many people in the room for this. Citizens coming out to voice their opinions and to be part of shaping Ipswich's future. So this is really great. The CDP was established back in 2003 and amended in 2007 and 8. It acts as a guiding document for the town's boards around initially 3 categories. It was initially around housing, economic development, and transportation. And then a 4th category was added in the 2007-8 timeframe around what we'd call sustainability or resilience today. This was and is quite a well laid out document. It's filled with data or data, you choose. Either way, it's old data and old data right now. And that's partly why we're here. And it was seen to be essentially a 10-year plan that importantly, and like few town documents, can and should be used to inform and guide policies and decisions of all town boards and committees. Though it's not a book of rules, like a bylaw or a master plan, it is, however, in my mind, the most important guidance tool in our toolbox. You can do the math. 2003 plus 10 is 2013, so we are long overdue for refreshing this document. I know that from the planning board's perspective, we cannot be happier. After about 5 years of anticipation and what seemed like a yearly occurrence of wait till next year, it's finally sufficient energy and funding have been secured to start this process, so yay, let's go. I'd like to welcome the folks from J.M. Colson here to Ipswich as well, so welcome.
Thank you.
They demonstrated a lot of creativity and thoughtfulness and technical expertise and experience during their interview process. And I believe they will do an outstanding job here in Ipswich for us. So again, welcome to town. Once again, it is heartening to see a room packed full of people. This is fantastic. Who really want to be part of defining and shaping this community, your community, and having a voice to say what Ipswich should look like over the next 10 years or so. A process like this only works when many, many thoughtful voices participate, share ideas, and consider where we are and where we want to be. The more people that participate, the better this result will be. So please, continue to be part of the process. Ask your friends to be part of the process. Go to the website. Have your friends and neighbors visit the website. All the input we can garner, the better this plan turns out, and the more it looks like what the community as a whole wants it to be. So, the people of Ipswich should shape the future, and the slogan that you have is building a bridge to the future, and that's what we hope to do. So you've heard enough from me. Let's get to work. Let's do this.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
My name's Ethan Parsons, and I'm the senior planner. And I came in here thinking I would just wing it, wing what I was going to say to you, and I think I will. Not say very much because Keith kind of stole my thunder, but I want you all to kind of put a name to my face and know that I'm in the planning office. I'm going to continue to work there, and I want to see this project through. When I was hired in 2015, the planning board expressed a keen desire to see this project done in the ensuing years, and here we are. It's 2019, and I'm really enthusiastic about this because we're finally doing it. As Keith said, we have secured funding. We've hired J.M. Goldson, Jen is here, and Anna Callahan from J.M. Goldson are here. There's momentum. We have an excellent steering committee, and I see many members of the steering committee here as well. Throughout the whole process, I want everybody who's involved and anybody who's watching from home or learning about this later that you can contact me, and also you can contact the project team through the website. The steering committee is going to be meeting and steering this process periodically, and they're going to be having public meetings. Those meetings get posted. You can attend the public meeting. You can read their minutes. I will apologize in advance for the delay in the minutes because they're not meeting, bi-weekly or monthly even. But we'll do our best to keep this a transparent process, and ultimately the plan will make a lot of folks in town accountable. And that's really what we're here to do tonight, is to talk about the vision. This project has been broken up into 2 phases. Well, the first part is the vision. What is the vision? The vision, in my opinion, is the bedrock for the plan. where do we want to go? You can't write a plan unless you have an understanding, a common understanding, some consensus around what a vision is, what it means. And so that's why we had these exercises. That's why we have a survey. That's why we're having this meeting tonight. We're also going to be having a presence at the pop-up farmers market. I believe it's June 21st. And there will be another public meeting like this sometime in September. We're talking about September. And that's not going to be the end of it. From there, we're going to move into the next phase of the project, which will be writing the plan, kind of writing the roadmap. And that is also going to be a public process, and that's going to involve more meetings like this, more guidance from the steering committee, and more involvement from the planning board and from the planning department. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jen Goldson from JM Goldson. And again, that's Anna Callahan in the back. And look forward to working with you all. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So I could tell this is going to be in my way. I was watching poor Ethan bump up against it. I'm Jen Goldson. I own a small planning firm that I started out of my house about 13 years ago. Just to give you a sense of my background. Can everybody hear me even in the way back and over here? So just to give you a sense of my background, I'm a general land use planner, but I started out in historic preservation before I went to planning school. And so my first love was really historic architecture and historic places. And I worked as a consultant in historic preservation for a few years, trying to figure out what else I wanted to do. And then I decided to become a general planner. And I won't tell you every moment of my career, but I've had a career path that took me through municipal planning. I worked in similar positions that Ethan is working in. And then I started my own firm to help communities, mostly communities that have adopted the Community Preservation Act. And then my business expanded because a lot of those CPA communities said, we kind of know what to do for historic preservation and open space and recreation. The thing we really struggle with is how do we use these CPA funds for housing? So then I started to get more and more into helping communities that have a lot of similarities to Ipswich with how to help housing, how to do local initiative in housing, and now my career is broadened and my business has broadened, and I'm so happy that Anna, who just ducked away, is over there talking with someone who's coming in, I think. But she joined my firm about a year ago, and it's three of us. You'll see Avery from time to time. She's not here tonight, me and Anna. And that's my whole firm. So I'm really happy to be here. Raise your hand if you notice that we have this survey link online when you came in, and the first thing you did was take out your phone and do the survey. Okay, well that's fine. But I just wanted to point out that this is the link to the survey, and you're welcome to take it. Hopefully not while we're presenting, but you could take it sometime later tonight or anytime over the course of the next few weeks. And so we're going to go through, it's a relatively brief presentation, but we think that it's important to get everyone on the same page regarding what are we even trying to do here tonight? What is this planning process all about? And how do we think about all the changes in your community over time? And when you think about a community development plan, Ethan had mentioned and Keith had mentioned, it includes certain elements. And all of those elements really deal with how do you want to shape the community in the future. And so this is a forum where you really think in a proactive way about what you want. And then through the course of the project, we help the community identify ways you can achieve what you want. And so achieving that vision. So we think about, what was Ipswich like in the past? And clearly you have a lot of historic architecture here, you have a lot of historic places here, you have a lot of ties to your past in this community. And so we think about, well, what was it like in the past? What is it like now in the present? And then we start to think about, well, how should we shape the future? And there are lots of town policies, there are ways the town government can control what the future is like. Now, they can't control everything about the future. There are certainly forces beyond the town's control, but the town has money, the town has property, the town has staff and resources and boards and commissions and volunteers that it can direct. How do they focus their time? And the town also has regulatory power. And so through all of those things, the town can really help shape what the future is like. So I like to think about the way communities change. And people, when I say the word change, I feel like people are like, I don't want this community to change. And I understand that. That feeling is in every community we work in. You're here because you love the community for probably lots of reasons, and you're probably very interested in keeping the things that you really love about it. But what I like to think about is, well, how did the community even get to be the way it is now? And it was really all the people who came before you, all the people who lived here, all the people who served the government, whether as an employee or an elected official. And it was all those both policies that they had created that were, very public, but it was also through lots of little incremental decisions. And through all of these things together, you get the community that you have now. And then I like to think about you all, and so I don't know most of you, but I do know one thing about you. And the thing that I know about you is that you all have one thing in common, other than you have some connection to Ipswich. You probably live here, but maybe not all of you. But the thing that I know you all have in common is that you care about the community, because you wouldn't choose voluntarily to spend 2 hours with me and Anna and this committee in this room in the basement of Town Hall if you didn't care about the community. And so because you care about this community, I look at all of you as the custodians. So this community has been passed on to you. I view it as even if you chose to be here, maybe you didn't grow up here, maybe you did, but I view this community as being passed on to you. And now it's your turn to take care of this community as custodians. And so as you are here, you'll leave your mark on the community, and you'll care for the community. You'll nurture the community in your own way, and then you'll leave it for the people who live here in the future. So when we think about planning and what we're doing, the reason it's both challenging and really rewarding, I don't want to go around the corner so people can't see me, is because it's complicated. So I put a bunch of nouns here: history, beauty, identity, tradition and progress, sustainability and resiliency, continuity and change, equity. And there are probably lots more that you can think of. But the idea is that planning, if you do it well, is really about looking for the right balance. So you're not going to keep everything the same. It's impossible. But at the same time, you don't want everything to change. There are probably things that you think you could do to have more equity in the community. Maybe there are things that you feel is important to your identity or to the beauty of the town. And then there's this idea of the balance between tradition and progress. And so you want progress, but you also want to hold on to those traditions. And so the question is, and I'm not here to give you an answer, I'm here really to pose the rhetorical question now, but you're actually going to be grappling with this in your exercises, is how do you do that? How do you find the balance? And it's not the same answer. Every community will come up with their own formula for finding that balance. And that's really your job, not mine. My job is to provide you with the tools that you need, the information you need, and the ways, the structure that you need to think about it. And then your job is to tell me, well, how do you balance that? What are the things that you care about that are absolutely, we cannot change this about our community? And what are things that you feel like, well, maybe it's worth changing something so that we can get something else? Am I making some sense?
Yes.
Okay. So, I know it's time to stop talking a lot when I have to drink more water. So, I'm going to stop talking for a little bit. If you could get your phones out. And if you don't have a phone, or if you don't have a plan that you feel you can use your texting minutes or whatever it is, your data on, you can always use your neighbor. Your neighbor can type in your answers for them. Raise your hand if you feel that you need someone to help you with this exercise, that you don't have your own phone and you need to look at a neighbor's, help a neighbor. Okay, so the exercise is you're going to text some answers to us. And so the number that you're going to text it to is here. It's 22333. So that's the number you enter into your text. And then when you get that number,
To the address that you're texting it to.
that's the address you're texting.
Okay,
Then
yeah.
you do all caps, J.M. Goldson. You just text the word J.M. Goldson, all caps, to this number, 22333. And then you don't do anything else other than wait for this little thing to come up. And what I want you to do is raise your hand when that comes up. This little, you've joined, and it won't say Anna Callahan, it'll say your name. Okay, Anna got it. Raise your hand when you get this little thing that says you've joined it.
Oh, I'd have to be quicker.
That's okay. Once you get in, good, thank you. You can put your hand down, thank you. And
The message.
so the message is J.M. Goldson, Goldson, all caps.
No space.
Yeah, I've got it. So if you have two people on one phone.
Yeah, you just type in her answers along with yours.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. We're not tracking who's telling us, we're just getting a bunch of answers in a minute.
My phone is
I'm gonna
really
tell
not
you
that
some of
this
it.
dirty, it's the case.
Okay. Is anybody having trouble?
I bring it everywhere, so.
Anna, just look at the hands that are up. She's having trouble, and one other person? You got it? Okay. Someone down here was having trouble? Raise your hand if you're having trouble, and Anna will come to you. All right, so the first thing I want you to do is just type in your answer to this question. How long have you lived, worked in, or otherwise been associated with Ipswich? Anna, do you need to,
Well, I'm just gonna type it in twice, right?
hold on.
Sorry.
Hold on a second. Anna's coming up.
It's water. Because I'm eating these stupid things. Yes, I would love you to get me some water. So answer for
You
myself?
haven't
No.
opened the poll yet.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
She's doing it.
the glass? Glass, please. Thank you, Helen.
Is she over here?
So let's do this faster while Anna's figuring out the,
No, it's a
yeah.
program.
okay.
Well, thank you. So I'm
So
doing her
raise your
thing.
hand if you've lived
Yeah.
here for less than a year. Raise your hand if you've lived here for 1 to 3 years. Okay, a few. How about 4 to 9 years? A few of you, good. How about
Thank
10
you
to
so much.
14 years? A few, all right. So the last one is over 15 years. Okay, the rest of you. All right, how about, I'm actually curious, this isn't on the sheet, but I'm curious. How many of you have lived here over 20 years? So I would say more than half of you. I'm just going to keep going, I'm curious now. How about over 30 years? Okay, wow. How about you were born
Showing
here?
my age.
You were born here? Okay.
No, I wasn't born here.
So
I'm not
I
a
would say
native.
that's like at least a third of you were born here. All right.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing. And I have another question for you. So, how many of you live in town currently? Okay, so probably most of you, but now I'm going to find out. Okay. How many of you work in town but don't live here? 2. How many people own a business in town? You can work here, you can live here too, but how many people own a business in town? So like a third. And is there any other connection to this town that I didn't ask you? Did anybody not get to raise their hand?
Well, you think they're going to raise their hand
Did I
now?
cover it? I know. Well, some people like to be put on the spot.
You work and live here but don't own a business.
Okay. Do you work and live here but don't own a business? Some of you do. Okay. Yeah. All right, good. Okay, so let's just go to the next one because we know the answer. All right, the next one is, what has changed about Ipswich in the past 20 years? And all you do is type in anything you want. Now, I'll give you, is this a word cloud or is this just scrolling?
I think it's just scrolling.
Okay, good. So type in anything you want. It can be a phrase, it can be a word, it can be a whole sentence if you want. Just type, and you can do it as many times as you'd like until we turn the slide. So what has
I'm just
changed about
typing that.
Ipswich in the past?
More traffic.
Yes.
Yeah, this one, yeah, just do this one now.
Car crashes.
Is this a multiple choice?
No.
It's any-
Type anything. What has changed about Ipswich in the past 20 years? And so we're getting some things on the board here. We're getting traffic, more crowded, more traffic, and development. Businesses have left the downtown.
Vacancies?
Right.
Acceleration of climate change. I'm reading it because I don't know if everybody can read it back there. Many more flood tides, loss of historic houses, accidents, meaning traffic accidents, or pedestrian accidents,
Wind?
development, growth at a tipping point and
Extreme
gentrification,
wind?
increased
Oh, I like
population,
that.
traffic again,
Uncontrolled
growth.
Yes.
Sometimes there's a lag, just try it again. You can do it again.
So,
The downtown lost interesting businesses, trees being cut down, restaurant turnover,
traffic increase?
crowded downtown development,
Trafficking.
coastal erosion,
Oh, coastal erosion.
crowded. Growth of EBSCO,
That's
We've had two new.
population has increased, development and loss of
alcohol.
forests,
I'm just going to say no
homes
bad thing.
renovated and increased in
Unless you think
value,
it's a bad
empty
thing. Do you think it's a
storefronts.
bad thing?
Sea level.
No,
Okay,
no.
so a lot of themes with traffic,
Well, I mean,
climate
it's
change,
new.
sea level rise, loss of businesses, development. All right, type in your last answer. We're going to move on to the next slide. But even if it doesn't appear on the screen,
Infrastructure
even if we
deterioration,
flip
that's
to
a
the
good
next
one.
slide and there's a little lag, we're going to catch it in the program. So don't worry if you just type something but it's not up yet. Okay. Loss of a sense of community. Let's do the next question.
Just wait
Jen.
like a minute.
Told
Flooding.
us to stop, so.
Okay. So this one is, what are things you love about Ipswich that you hope will never change?
Beach.
What are things you love about Ipswich that you hope will
Open
never
space, yep.
change?
Say it twice, it's like rare.
Okay, so this one is a word cloud. Let me just give you a piece of advice. If your phrase has more than, if you have more than one word, put them together with no spaces and then they'll stay together. Right, Anna? So just do, like if you do open space, one word with no space. Because then it'll stay together. Otherwise it takes
yeah.
open, and space.
But then you
space,
get
space.
spell check and it's
Yeah.
so much fun.
Don't worry about spell check, yeah. Tell them it's
Tell
wrong.
them. All right, what else?
Yeah, exactly, like beach access, dog access, one
Community.
word,
Yeah,
and
like
it'll
that.
stay
I'd
together.
say safety. Level
Yeah.
of safety.
And so you can see what's happening, or some of you can, you can see what's happening with the word cloud.
wonderful
The,
people are.
the
How do you
biggest
say
words
that?
mean that
Kindness,
most people
empathy.
are entering
Yeah.
them into their phone.
Friendliness.
And so as people continue to
Neighborliness.
enter, if you enter the
It's more
same
like
word
how
as
they,
someone else, it
how the
gets
community
bigger.
pulls together.
And at the end of this, you'll see where the biggest words were, meaning the most people entered that word. Now, we would love it if you don't stuff the ballot and just keep entering open space on your phone, because it defeats the purpose a little bit. But if you could
water.
you can answer multiple times, just try to answer different
Voting.
answers every time.
All right, access to
Access.
personal access.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I
open
think so.
space
That
and
makes
community
sense.
and beach are sort of the consistently biggest ones. All right, I think we should go on. Old houses, culture, town meeting, gym, another person, I take it.
Same person.
Oh, same person. Okay.
I think you must be sending those.
All right. Everybody good? Anybody object if we move on? Okay, let's go on. So I think both Ethan and Keith said that we have a number of elements that we're looking at as part of the community development plan. And so these are what was in the old plan through the original and then the amended version in 2007, 2008. So we have transportation, housing, economic development, public infrastructure, and resiliency. Next slide. And we like to look at these things, even though there are 4 different elements of the community development plan at the end of the day, and we collect a whole different data set for each one. We like to look at them together, and we like to look at the interconnections, and we think it's really important. And so as you move one piece in transportation, it affects other things. It will affect economic development. It could affect housing. It could affect lots of things. And so the way that we design exercises, and when you start to discuss, we like to think about those connections and about the forces that are shaping your vision. And we're going to get into all sorts of things. But I just want to lay that as groundwork early on in this project, that all of these things are connected. And even if you come into the room really caring about, lots of people put traffic down in the first question, realizing that all of these things really work together. And so our goal in writing this plan and in helping you think through is to recognize those connections. And so this particular phase we're in, phase 1, we'll look at really 2 elements. I shouldn't use the word element. I don't want to confuse you more than you might already be confused. 2 components of the plan will be creating a vision for 2030 and creating a set of goals that support that vision. And so what I mean by a vision, so we have this tree metaphor we like to use, that a plan is really based in your community values at its roots. Its trunk, what supports it, is really the information and the trends and the forces that you maybe don't have control over. And then you create a vision that really becomes the canopy of the tree. This is what you're aiming toward. This is the beautiful tree in blossom. And then the branches really support that by creating conditions that you're aiming for in order to create that vision. And then later in the plan, in the next phase, phase 2, we'll really think of strategies. What does the town do? How do you implement this? How do you create this? And how many of you got a chance to read the old vision from from the old plan 15 years ago? It's out in the hall. Good. And it said Vision 2020, and the vision was really for next year. And so that's why we thought it would be interesting. They came up with it 15 years ago, but thinking, well, how much of that actually came true? And we just have it here, but I know that it's hard to read here. It's on the board, and I think the whole plan is also on our project website. Is that right, Anna? Yeah. So if you want to go back and look at this, the whole plan from 15 years ago is on the project website. That little card that we handed out, we'll also show it to you in a future slide, but you're welcome to take a card, follow along with the project on the project website. But the question for you right now, they're just rhetorical questions, but to what degree has Ipswich achieved that vision from 15 years ago? What values or conditions have changed in the community since the time that vision was written? And what does the community continue to value even now? What's still relevant about that vision? And you may say, well, the whole thing's still relevant. We didn't really achieve it. Or you might say, we've come very close to achieving this, and things are really different now because we have different things that we're aware of and things that we care about. Or you could say a combination of those things. Next slide. So the phases we're in phase 1 now, updating the needs assessment and helping to develop a vision and goals by working with you all. And we have a number of other community engagement activities that we'll talk about. And then the next phase again is to achieve, how do you achieve those goals? What strategies? And then who does what, when, and with what money? And that's what the implementation plan is about. And so the schedule that we're on is we started a couple of months ago. And we're really in a community engagement phase right now that will last through the spring and into September when we have the second public forum. Then over the summer, we'll be working hard at updating the needs assessment, all of that data that Keith and Ethan talked about. We're updating all of that, working with an intern, which will be really helpful. And all of those 4 sections, the data in those 4 sections will be updated over the summer. And then we'll come back to you in September at another public forum. We'll share what we learned through the process of all of the community engagement, what we learned through updating the needs assessment, and then we'll be working on the actual draft report the draft needs assessment and the vision and goals report in the fall before launching into the next part of the plan, which is about strategies. Any questions so far? I know I've been talking a while. Nobody's asked any questions. You can feel free to interrupt me if I say something that doesn't make sense, or if you want me to say something more about either.
I don't see anybody eating Hershey's Kisses.
Oh yeah, there are Hershey's Kisses.
I got that.
Yeah, no, we have.
I had,
There's some water and
I had some.
snack stuff up here.
So our objectives for phase 1, yes.
So I did have a chance to read the prior vision, and it looked excellent. And so why are we not beginning with that, rather than just saying, did we achieve it? Because obviously it's a vision, and we couldn't in 10 years achieve it. But it looked like a pretty darn good vision.
Yeah. So when
Why
you
are we starting over without building on
So,
that?
right, that's a great question. And so the intention of having you read that before we even did a presentation to you was so that you knew about it, number one. Raise your hand if you have already read that Vision 2020. A lot of you did, but not all of you. So maybe about half the room did, which is impressive. Raise your hand if you were involved in the plan 15 years ago and putting that together. A few of you, but not as many. So our point was to make sure that that old vision was fresh in your mind, because we don't want to start with a blank page. We wanted to make sure that the moment you registered and started thinking about the project, you read that vision. And then we also gave you a bunch of data on those boards that said, this is what it said in the old plan, these are some data points from the old plan, and this is how things have changed. And we wanted to get you to start thinking about that. So you're really, Charlotte, right? Very perceptive. We intentionally designed this so that you're not starting from scratch. And when you get into your visioning exercise in a moment, you could say, this vision is something we're still working towards. I don't want to change anything. But other members of your group may feel differently. And so the point is really to talk to each other about that and come up with what you think the vision should be now, working together collaboratively with the folks at your table. So, yeah, yeah, of course.
So when I read it, one of the things that came to mind was that we have to ask ourselves the question about those that we achieved, why did we achieve them, and those that we didn't, why didn't we? Because I think maybe our assumptions about how we could get to, I saw one that was multiple options for commuting around town. So there was something about either our strategy, when we went from the vision to the strategy, or some constraint that we really didn't consider. So I think it's important to look at the old plan and to say, and have our success or failure at meeting some of those goals inform the approach we take to the update. Because you have to say, well, wait a minute. Our assumptions about that example I gave probably go back a little bit, drill into that.
That's a great observation. Thank you for saying that. And I think you'll see that the exercise we designed starts to help you think through what are those forces now that could help you or hurt you. Next one. And so this is a little small, but I'll just give you a sense of it. You don't need to read every word on the screen. The idea is looking forward. What are some of the things to just think about in 2030 around these 4 areas? So with public infrastructure and resiliency, there's sea level rise, flooding, drought, rising temperature, ecosystem adaptations. There's probably more things you would put. We just did a little brain dump. What do we need to start to think about in the next 10 years? For transportation, micro-mobility like e-scooters, electric bikes, car sharing, electric vehicles, autonomous cars, super high-speed trains, just some of the technology that's coming out. For economic development, the rise of collaborative workspaces, remote working and freelancing, drone delivery, robotics and AI, the death of malls, reimagining Main Street. And for housing, And this was just our little brain dump, like in 2030, next 10 years, what are these trends that we're seeing? Micro-living, co-living, multi-generational housing, 3D printed homes and modular construction. And there's probably all sorts of things you could have filled out this list for. But there are lots of things happening now and into the future that I just wanted to start to put our minds a little bit into the future and how things are changing around us. Next slide. So Anna's going to go through and get you into your first exercise now, and I'm going to take a drinking break. A water break.
So while everyone's introducing themselves to their new members of the table, we have another polling question up on the screen.
Our new person who wants to be select board.
Right back here, you mean? Oh, which one? Oh, that's the old. Huh? Oh,
So we're asking you, what are some things that you love about Ipswich to distinguish it from other communities? So what makes Ipswich
Helen's here,
unique?
Carrie's here.
And I can't hear.
Oh, with the
Mr.
Doherty's here. I think everyone's,
Yeah, you explain a little bit.
Charlie might not be here. Not a fan. Charlie?
So up on the screen, we have one more polling question to sort of launch us into the next exercise phase. And so essentially the question is, what makes Ipswich unique? What are some things that distinguish
Oh, we're
it from other
entering stuff?
communities?
Yes.
It could be other communities on the North Shore, it could be other communities throughout Massachusetts, but what makes Ipswich different from others?
So one thing just to challenge yourself, the question is worded a little differently. The other one was, what do you not want to change?
Oh.
This might be subtle, but this one is, what distinguishes it from other communities?
So it could be good.
The things that we
It
don't
could
want to
also-
change.
Well, it's what you love, though. It's what you love.
Underneath all of your maps, there's an exercise. So you see this map up here. Underneath it, be careful not to snort it.
Get the microphone now.
There is a sheet of paper with a box on it. So in this box, I want you all to collectively, I took theirs, yes, sir. To collectively write what your vision is for Ipswich in 2030. So it could use a lot of the elements of 2020, but the point of the exercise is the elements, it could be a vision that is holistic, or it could be components of what you want to see Ipswich
Are we writing on the yellow paper?
Yeah, right on this.
Right on.
In
Yes,
the box.
in the box.
And you've got to write in the box because you're going to use the sides for something else.
Walking, biking, trail.
No, I'm
I will.
Wrote your vision inside the box. So on the right side of the box, we're asking you to think of some. Can you speak louder? Yeah, I can. I'll speak as loud as I can. So on the right side of the box, you're going to be writing some external forces that might help achieve the things that are inside the box that comprise your vision. So an example that I saw was 100% carbon neutrality. So that could be increasing the commuter rail could be one example of that, or increasing the number of bike lanes in town. Is there any questions? So on the right side of the box, yeah. All the things that could help achieve it. On the right side, we asked you about things that would help you achieve that vision, and on the left side, we now want you to think about what are some barriers, what are some challenges to achieving the things that you have in your vision. You can still keep thinking about the help side.
on both sides.
Okay, so you all, or almost all of you, I think everyone now, should have this sort of matrix of things. And you'll see running along the right side, we have high priority, medium priority, and low priority. Oh yeah, sorry. And on the top we have different scales of concern. So you have My Family and I, Ipswich, and the North Shore region. And we're going to ask you to think about what are some of your biggest concerns in Ipswich in 2030. And you're going to be using the little Post-it notes that are on the tables and writing down different concerns for these different scales. And you'll want to place them where your different priorities are. So if maybe climate change or is a concern of yours in 2030, and I would say I'm very concerned about it, but and that would be maybe a regional thing because it affects everybody. You would put it in this high over here. Or it could be at My Family and I could be making sure that my kids can go to good schools. Could be also a high priority, and you'd put it in this little square.
To do instead, but know that we take copious transcriptions of everything you wrote down. So whatever you wrote down on your exercises, we will capture in our summary. So even if you don't get to say something, just know, as long as you wrote it down, it's going to be incorporated into the results. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the room sort of in half, and I'm going to have most of the folks on this side of the room talk about the vision. I'm going to have you talk about, name 3 things that you'd like to see in the future, and then name 1 or 2 forces on either side, helping, hindering, okay? So it's not reading your entire vision, it's just picking out 2 or 3 things that you want to tell me, and picking a couple things from each side of what will help and what will hinder. And I'm going to have the folks on this side of the room do a different one. I'm going to have you focus on the concerns matrix, okay? But I'm not going to tell you yet exactly what my question is, because I don't want you to talk about your answer yet. I want you to listen to the folks on this side of the room first. And so the other trick for the folks on this side of the room is I'm going to ask if you can listen to the folks that went before you and see if you can pick something different on your list that they didn't say. Now, it could be that the last person runs out of ideas. I don't know, you guys have a lot, so maybe I'll pick on you last because you have a lot of ideas. Does everybody understand the instructions? So you guys don't have to understand because I'm not asking you to do it. Only these people. Okay? All right, so let's go with the table. You don't have to do this. Yeah, I know, I wasn't clear. I'm going to do it like this. Yes, I know. You guys are going to do concerns. I'm cutting the room like this. Right down the middle. And these guys are going to do yeah, only one person will respond.
Want anything? Anybody want anything?
Somebody here.
Here.
And I'm going to repeat the instructions right here. So listen up.
I know.
Somebody
Oh,
here
catching.
is going to tell me 3
want
things
another one?
they talked about in their vision,
Would you like another
of things they want to see in Ipswich. And then they're going to tell me a couple things from help and hinder. Things on either side. And then I'm going to move on to the next table, which is going to be you guys. And I want you to try not to repeat yourselves, if possible.
My name's Chuck Whitten. The first thing we wrote down in our vision on the right side of the column was communication and planning. So that's
What were yeah, let's get to that in a second. Can you tell me first, inside your box, what are 3 things you guys said you wanted to see in Ipswich?
adequate housing, still historic, schools fully funded.
Okay, adequate housing, still historic, and schools fairly
Fully funded.
And now, what's something that will hinder that, those things?
Communication and planning.
And what's something that will help?
Yes,
Communication and planning. Okay, very good. Okay, thank you.
Communication.
Communication can either help or hinder. Right. Thank you. Very good. Carrie's table. Who's presenting here? Yeah. So name 3 things that they didn't say from inside your box first.
Okay. A vital downtown area, better trains, public transportation, and more bike trails.
Okay.
And like
Vital downtown, more trains, better transportation, and more bike lanes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what's something that will hinder those?
We wrote apathy. People not getting involved and not caring about it. And that there's the same amount of people, probably these people right here, who do a lot of the work.
And what's something that would help the vision?
We were talking about the river access, and people have talked about this before, having docks for kayaks and things to come up with docking be part of the downtown area. So that would require, we don't know, we're taking a guess, but we heard that it would require removing the dams. I'll do that tonight. You know, just moving forward.
Can everybody hear her? Should I repeat? Yes, repeat. Okay, so the help would be doing canoe and kayak access on the river.
That was one of the ideas.
One idea, but she knows it's complicated because it's a dam, right?
Yes.
That's the bottom.
Well, they really know it's complicated.
Yeah.
I just said, let's go remove the dam.
Yeah, let's
So
go
I
remove
obviously
it.
don't know that. I'm just saying, let's move forward and make the river accessible by a dock.
Well, this is the long-term plan to remove the dam anyway.
Long-term plan to remove the dam.
Right, see, so that's how simple it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good. That was great. Thank you so much. All right. So you guys, if you could name 3 things that hopefully weren't mentioned, if that's possible, in your box.
So one was 100% renewable energy generation. Another one was to capitalize on our historic significance to generate a tourist economy in our town. Another idea was to divert truck traffic from downtown. Truck routes.
All seem to like that.
Okay.
And let's do a help and a hinder. You can hear her, right? Repeat it. 100% renewable energy. What was the historic one?
To capitalize on our historic significance to generate a tourist economy.
Capitalize on historic significance to generate a tourism economy. And the third one?
Divert truck traffic.
Divert truck traffic, yeah.
Where are they gonna go?
Okay, so help and hinder.
So for help, apply for state grants for renewable energy efficiency.
State grants for renewable energy efficiencies.
Also public buy-in to community projects.
Public buy-in, yeah.
So a hinder would be lack of sustained leadership.
Lack of sustained leadership as a hinder. Okay.
Cool.
Great, thank you.
That was great.
Or, sorry, I got you.
It's Seraphima.
Seraphima, thank you. Okay, so you guys are the last ones. Do you have any 3 on your list that wasn't mentioned yet?
Good job.
We have improved health of the Ipswich watershed,
Improved health of the Ipswich watershed.
improvements to both infrastructure and roads. I guess that is somewhat similar.
Improvements to infrastructure and roads.
And more affordable housing for elderly and young. I know they talk about housing, we're talking about affordable housing.
More affordable housing for the elderly and the young. Okay, good. Now, what's one thing that will hinder this?
Money,
Money, others. What's one thing that will help?
money.
Money. Okay, good.
There you go.
All right. So now all the other folks.
Not one
So
mention
this
of
side
open
of the
space.
room and the front table, we're going to do the concerns part, and we're going to break it out. So we have 3 categories. We have me and my family, or my family and I. We have Ipswich, and we have the region. And so what we're going to do is start with me and my family here and here. And I didn't count it out, but I think I'll do 2 and 2. So me and my family, you guys are Ipswich, and you guys are region. So, me and my family, what was, name maybe 2 or 3 things that you folks had high priority for me and my family?
My name is Mike Doherty, and my group for my family and I had for high priority household budgets,
Household budgets,
schools,
schools,
and housing affordability.
housing affordability. Okay, thank you. This group, are there 2 or 3 things that they didn't mention in me and my family?
Yes, they didn't mention open space.
Open space?
They didn't mention trail connections.
Trail connections.
Those 2. I think they
Okay.
sort of mentioned everything else.
Okay, open space and trail connection, good. All right, let's hear from the Ipswich folks. So we're going to do you all first. And you have a lot of Post-it notes, I see, so that's wonderful. Maybe if you've kind of sorted through them, and this may be too hard of a question, so tell me if it's too hard. But if you've sorted through, are there any things that a lot of people at your table were saying the same thing of?
I think that's what we're kind of looking for.
Yeah,
right now.
okay. So if you can give me 2 or 3 of something that a bunch of people said for the town.
Water conservation.
Water conservation.
Water, just in general.
Water in general.
You know, quality, quantity.
Quality, quantity.
All
yeah.
of it. Business growth.
Business growth.
Schools, having good schools.
In schools.
There's many more. This was,
Yeah, no,
you
that's
can
good. The
see
3
how
is
many.
good. The 3 is good. That's good. Thank you. And now you folks, were there things on your list that they didn't say for Ipswich?
Yeah, our big one was climate change,
Climate change,
open space,
open space again, yep, but not at the town level, you were at the family, yeah.
and schools.
Schools, and that was something that I think you guys did mention.
Yep.
Do you have another one?
Sure, we have lots. Local farms.
Local farms, yeah, okay. So concerned about losing them, yeah, okay. All right, let's talk about the region. So if you all can pick 2 or 3 things that you... It's only 2.
Yeah, with such a parochial table, we're gonna just take the Ipswich ones and say.
You're
Diversity in
cheating.
Ipswich
You're
is
cheating,
important to the
okay.
region.
We're gonna apply our values to the region.
I think the 3 that come to mind are climate change,
Climate
adaptation,
change. Adaptation, yeah.
water supply,
Water again.
and transportation.
And transportation,
Yeah, big
regional
things. It's all high.
transportation system, yeah.
Well, not necessarily, no. I think we took it to mean that it's important not only to the town, but it's important to the wider region also. Right?
Okay.
You can't, it's kind of hard to argue for more commuter rails if it's just getting you to Hamilton.
Right, okay. Okay, so last group,
So at a regional level, we had 2 countervailing examples of the way in which a region can either be positive or have a negative effect. And our conversation on the prior exercise started with 40Bs and how that currently overrides all ability of a local town to respond and guide development. So there was a concern about the state coming in and imposing 40B or also around water management, how the DEP does things. There was some controversy around that. On the other hand, we all recognize that this table, so climate change, water resource management, these are actually regional levels. So we have the Watershed Association here, but the fact that we're sitting as a town trying to plan our water resources, which are part of a larger aquifer, and actually one of the comments was around preservation of agricultural soils, right? When the drumlins came, when the glaciers came down, we had these areas that are suitable for agriculture. And currently, we have no way of preserving those. And then finally, just to throw a wrench in the works, we all recognize that our town recycling system is broken, right? Now that China's not taking our recycling anymore in those containers, the whole country is bottled up. And we can go from our locally generated waste to right across the border to the Seabrook plant, and we can look at that waste and how we deal with our waste as a society and in our town is a concerning issue as well.
so my last question for you all, is there anything, because of the structure of the way I made you do this, where you could only talk about certain things, is there anything from your table that has not been said yet that you really wish for the group to know? And anybody can speak. Yes.
I'm concerned about pesticide use. I'm concerned about the collapse of insects and species loss. So it concerns me for Ipswich.
People could hear that, right? Yes.
We talked a lot about the concerns about our infrastructure and how growth will affect that. And one of the things I think about is how Ipswich is actually surrounded by marshland, ocean, protected land, Willowdale, Bradley Park. We don't have room like if you lived in the Midwest, for example, you could just grow Chicago out forever and ever if you want to. You can't do that in Ipswich. You can't carry the town up into the state forest or out into the ocean. So we had a limited bit of land, and we already have a very limited infrastructure with pipes and roads that are 100 years old and falling apart, unless people like potholes. And so a lot of our conversation was around how do we sustain our town and prevent it from becoming, reaching that breaking point where we can't maintain our infrastructure in a very limited geography and resources.
Thank you. Anybody else want to respond to my open-ended question?
We talked about one that was, so I heard it wasn't really a thing. It was more of a spirit, and it was trying to make sure that we preserve the spirit of compromise within the town, so that that's important. I think Chuck mentioned communication. That's important too, of course. But you really, truly, when you have a world with limited resources, we heard a lot of great ideas, we know we're only going to get to do a small fraction of all those ideas. You need a spirit of compromise. You need to be able to say, listen, you're not going to get everything you want 100%, but we have competing priorities, and you have to learn compromise.
Yes.
The former community development plan had a open space, and it basically was taken out of the recent open space plan for that community development plan was done. Certainly, the answers you got early on, open space probably was the biggest there. And I think it's an issue that it's not included. I don't know where
as one of the elements, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure where we are on the updating the open space plan, and we could maybe take over some of it. But I really want to sort of also echo what Helen said, is that we also, anybody who's been reading the papers in the last few days know that our brethren in the woods are in as deep trouble as we are. And what do we do? What do we do to maintain the environment you referred to Willowdale as protected. You walked in Willowdale recently, I know you guys have. It's not very protected. And I think there's just a lot of work to do in that area that we will be missing.
Okay.
I feel like I missed someone over here. Let me come
Protected
back
from
to this
development,
table.
and not protected from mountain bikes.
I just want to make an observation. I think a lot of what's going on, what we're trying to accomplish here, has to do with that intangible thing that you call, or what I call my sense of community, how I developed a passion for my own community over the years of living here. But that doesn't have to have 35 years of content. It can have a much shorter horizon. And I think we have to think about all the time how we disseminate information in our own community to help foster that sense of place that we want to achieve in our town. It's not a uniform definition, but it's based on people having accurate information in a timely basis, and I think that's a good objective to include in a plan like this. How do we disseminate information on a timely basis so people are making decisions based upon what's best for the community, not out of fear, but what's going to advance our community forward. I think that should be a part of this plan, information accuracy and dissemination, that will build on that in a positive way.
Okay, so I see this woman over here wanted to speak, someone over here, and this one. Is there anyone else? Okay, so I know it's 8:53, so we'll take these three as the last three. So go ahead here.
I just wanted to point out that for Ipswich, even more than the average community, it's essential that we really continue to ensure that protecting a healthy environment and protecting a healthy economy, they go hand in hand. They're not opposed to each other. And so I think that needs to be one of the real building blocks of our future plan.
Thank you. Yes.
I'd like to go further with that, talking about how much we all love the green space, we love protecting the environment. We have limited, as you pointed out, limited areas to expand. Well, I've been here 40 years, raised the kids here, and the population's been about steady. Maybe it was 11,500 and now it's 13,000. We haven't talked about population growth. The country is growing. It's gone up, I don't know, 60% in those 40 years. Do we have a feeling as a community about how much we want to grow in numbers and how much we want to keep where we are?
Yes.
We should discuss that maybe for zoning and further issues.
We discussed that.
Okay, I said I'd take one more, but I'm actually going to take two more, so go ahead.
So, I mean, there's a lot of talk about compromise, and there's a lot of talk about getting information out there. One of the problems we have, and especially something that I think is really damaging to space, is if you don't give the best case and the worst case scenario when you're presenting something to the town, and then the worst case scenario comes out, or things that you said were going to happen don't, you're damaging your own long-term goals. So it's really important that when we present things to the town, that we're giving them, this is the good part, this is the bad part. Balance it out and let people actually make a choice, rather than telling them a bunch of stuff that, if they come out this way, that's true, everything goes right. But, you know, it has to be balanced, and I'm looking at things, when I look at negativity about the town, about things that happen, it's almost always tied to something where they said, the wind turbine's going to do this, the space is going to do this, you know, this is going to create this much money, and then it didn't. And almost all the negativity around projects seems to be due to that. So I'd ask that if we go forward with a plan and we present topics, that we really look at both sides of what can happen and let people make a choice. You know, most times they'll make the right choice, but they should know this can go wrong. Then later they say, well, they said that.
Yeah, it's like a doctor telling you the side effects of your prescription might be, but it won't be. Yeah, thank you. One more comment, Chris?
No, I just wanted to quickly say, on the heels of the population, on the population issue, here we are, a town of 14,000 now. You know, what is the ultimate goal? Is it 18,000, 20,000?
10,000?
But my feeling is, if you haven't resolved the issues so that everyone has a respectable quality of life at 14,000, what makes anyone think 20,000 is going to solve?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, Anna, I think that you had some closing slides before we wrap up, just sort of next steps and what to look for.
So if you're thinking that, you're asking yourself, I'm really interested in this project, how can I stay involved? Here are some opportunities. So we'll be at the Ipswich Pop-Up Farmers Market on June 21st, which I also think is the Riverwalk expansion ceremony. Terry Bates will correct me if I'm wrong. And then you also got, if you didn't get a business card when you walked in, there are some other business cards out on the sign-in table. You can take them as you go. This is the project site, and we have other exercises online that you can participate in, and we'll also have updates on the project, as well as information that we'll be spreading about the project as we go along. So, for example, once we put together a needs assessment, the draft of that will be online, draft materials, so other reports will be online. So we'll be updating you on the project as we go on. And then also on the project website is our online survey, which is now live. And it's bridgingipswich.com/survey, and you can access it that way, or you can access it from the homepage. And that'll be online through the summer, so probably through the end of August. Yes, Gary?
Do you have to register on the website to take the online survey?
I think so.
Is there any way to change that?
I don't think so. I think you need to register, but it won't capture, I think it's still an anonymous survey, though, even though you're registered.
It's not necessarily issued. People want to do the survey, but they don't want to go through that step of registering.
The one thing is, if you register, I know a lot of the concern I would have as someone registering is, am I going to be inundated with information or like emails? It's all confidential, and we won't be.
And I think that's fine for everybody in this group. We're all bought into this. We're all here. But we've got a lot of Ipswich citizens that wanted to, or maybe didn't want to come tonight, that are interested in doing the survey, and I've already seen it on social media, there's pushback about having to register to do the survey. So I'm just hoping that, that you folks and Ethan and other stakeholders here could think about a way for the survey outreach that doesn't require registering, but I also understand you want to also have information that is measurable, and that's one way of doing it, is by making people register, so you're not getting faulty information.
Yeah, and we're hoping that, people who are doing the survey are interested in the project, and so you'll also participate in other things that are on the website, and you do need to register to do the other activities.
Right.
Yeah, that's great.
Do we have mechanisms for people who are not, I know in this tech age, pretty much everybody is able to access online, but what about people who do not have computers at home, or don't have a smartphone?
Yeah, we can make a paper copy available, probably in the planning department or somewhere in town hall, maybe in the public library.
Maybe a town meeting would be a good place.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
And if not there, even sent out with an electric bill or council on aging
Oh,
to
yeah.
try to get that group of people involved.
Or they could do the survey at the pop-up market.
Yeah, that's definitely, there's definitely some things that will be integrated into it.
So from the peanut gallery back here, there was a suggestion that it would be a requirement that people identify themselves in their survey, so that these aren't just like social media things spinning out of control, right? That we have some level of commitment to share and work with together.
That's definitely a concern.
And batteries would help.
We gotta run through it, okay. So this is the Friends website.
Good.
That's what we were just talking about, and this is the survey. So that's everything. Thank you all for coming.
Good job.
Heard it would be like this.